Your father had one final request for the next 7 days. You are all grounded.
No.
Please don't.
No.
7 days, huh?
I don't know how we're gonna make it.
Anything can happen. Anything happens all the time.
What are you waiting for?
To Dad.
To Dad.
To Dad.
This is great. I don't know why we don't do this more often.
Because we don't like each other very much.
This is the guy that slept with my wife.
Yeah, that's a princess cut. You guys are idiots, but you're my idiots.
This is Where I Leave You, only in cinemas.
Hello, I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. This past year, I read a book titled This Is Where I Leave You by Jonathan Tropper. It was irreverent and even crass at times, to be sure, but it was also very insightful and full of heart. So as you can imagine, someone like me instantly fell in love with it, and I was super excited for the film adaptation. So how did it fare out? I'll tell you after I explain the story. This Is Where I Leave You tells the story of Judd Altman, played by Jason Bateman, who must spend a week with his very dysfunctional family after his father passes away. This is even more difficult as Judd has just split up with his wife Quinn, played by Abigail Spencer, after he discovered she was sleeping with his boss Wade, played by Dax Shepard. Things get even more complicated as Judd must deal with the family drama of his sister Wendy, played by Tina Fey, his older brother Paul, played by Corey Stoll, his younger brother Philip, played by Adam Driver, and his mother Hillary, played by Jane Fonda, all the while trying to rekindle a lost romance with his old friend Penny, played by Rose Byrne. As you can tell from that long-winded synopsis, this is a pretty crowded and convoluted story, but the film is pretty faithful to the source material, no doubt because the original author is also the screenwriter. Or rather, it's faithful to the book in terms of its content and plot, but not so much when it comes to the tone. The book has this sort of angry and kind of mean-spirited tone to it, but it worked there because it was always clear that the characters were using their constant fighting and shouting and cursing as a way of coping with uncomfortable situations, like real people do. This is a lot more difficult to convey in a movie, though, so the movie tones down the anger a bit and turns up the sappiness just a little too much. I'll explain more about the changes as I go on. The cast in this movie is excellent. Bateman is the everyman who is going through a rough patch in life and just wants to find a direction in his life again. Faye is the bossy sister who is sort of the second mom of the family, but she is humanized a lot through a bad marriage and a fling with an old flame, played by Timothy Olyphant. Stoll is sort of the older brother who has to be the responsible stick in the mud, even though he doesn't really want to, though his role is significantly reduced from the novel. Driver is the classic family screw-up that everyone still likes because he's the baby of the bunch and he just hasn't grown up yet, or some such bullshit. Fonda definitely owns the role of an aging mom who is way too comfortable talking about sex to her children, and all the scenes with her pretty much hit that perfect balance of hilarious and cringeworthy that they needed to. Rose Byrne is pretty funny as always. She comes off as the quirky ball of energy that a lonely divorced man like Judd would fall for. All the relationships in this movie do feel legitimate and authentic, but they're just not as well developed as they were in the book. A big part of that is because the flashbacks that focused on these interactions, particularly between the brothers, are almost completely omitted from the film. This is why I said earlier that Corey Stoll was the weak link in the cast, because the flashbacks in the book were mostly about his character and Judd. In fact, there was a whole subplot in the book about how when they were kids, Paul's arm was severely injured while he was protecting Judd from a guard dog. The injury made him give up a promising career in sports, and Judd spent years feeling guilty about what happened. This subplot is completely absent from the film. My guess is that maybe they felt it was a bit too dark to fit into the movie's tone, but I don't think that's a good reason. The point of mixing comedy and drama is not just to poke fun at our everyday lives, but also to help us cope with our troubles and insecurities. Like the old saying goes, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So by turning down the harshness of the drama, you take something away from the humor as well, so both end up feeling watered down. That's not to say that the movie butchers the source material by any means. Like I said before, the actors are all great in their roles, and though the drama and comedy are watered down, they're still there and are by no means bad. This is a film that obviously wants to tell a story about the pains of being an adult and how nothing in this life ever turns out exactly the way we want it to. But just because something can never be perfect, it doesn't mean that it can't still be good. And I think that sums up the movie in general. Not perfect, but it can still be good. Overall, I give the film version of This Is Where I Leave You a high small screen rating. It's an enjoyable movie to watch at home with friends or family, but it's never quite as funny or as touching as it should be. If you want to see the story at its full potential, read the original book. I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Goodbye.